This is J. Krishnamurti's third discussion with teachers in Saanen, 1967.
Shall we continue with what we were talking about yesterday? We were considering, if I remember rightly, what is the function of education? We said that through conformity to any particular given society, communist, Catholic, capitalist, and so on, socialist, and being educated to a pattern to earn a livelihood, however necessary, does not cover the whole field of education. We said too that a new human being must come out of the right kind of education. The new human being cannot possibly be categorized or put into a pattern or through imagination or speculation mold him to what we think a new human being is. So we were saying yesterday that in a school, which we are all thinking of bringing about, in Europe, though there two of them exist in India, in a school of that kind, we were saying that how to bring about a state of mind in the student which has never touched fear. Which doesn't know what fear means. And we were saying, apart from teaching, and so bringing about the quickening of intelligence through questioning, discourse, exchange, criticism, in which there is no sense of authority of any kind, we came to the point yesterday is it possible without any form of compulsion, without any threatened reward, to bring about a sense of courtesy, consideration, and hence punctuality, and so on. A discipline which is not that of conformity, which is not born out of fear, out of compulsion. Is it possible in a school to bring this about? That's what we were considering, if I remember rightly yesterday, weren't we? We were saying, how is it possible for a group of teachers without compulsion, reward, punishment, obedience, to bring about a discipline so that the student naturally, without any fear, is punctual, not only to the classes, but to everything, orderly, in his room, doesn't incessantly chatter, is not cruel, and so on. Is this possible? I do not know if you have considered it or gone into this question that those students, children, who are at their homes, heavily conditioned. Already they are conditioned. Already they know fear. Already they know a peculiar form of obedience in which there is revolt. And when they come to a school of this kind, can there be a discipline without any form of threat? That's where I think we left off yesterday. Probably in the school, we've all, from 5, 7 on. I don't know. We haven't absolutely decided or discussed that point. But is it possible to bring about a discipline without compulsion, without threat? That is the central issue. And how is it to be done? So that one doesn't destroy the freedom of youth, the eagerness, the curiosity, the sense of cooperation, doing things together, which most people have, children especially. And without destroying any of that, is it possible to bring about a discipline which is non-conforming, but which is self-generating, self-perpetuating. I don't know if the question is clear. If one is a teacher, how are you going to do this? How would you do it? You have understood the... I think if I have understood it, the question rightly, the questioner says, more or less leave it to the child to realize, though he has been brought up to fear and all the rest of it, to realize here in that school which is his home, without telling him, without lecturing to him, without doing any of those things, let him naturally realize how would you, if you're a group of teachers, that's what we are discussing, with a group of teachers, how would you bring this about? Not with 1 or 2 children or 10 children, with perhaps 50, 100 or 200. How would you do this? That is, the questioner says, if I have understood rightly, and please correct me, that establish right relationship with the teacher and the student establish right relationship, and through love, through affection, the child will naturally be discipline himself. Huh? Isn't that a form of compulsion, very subtle? Like saying, I love you and do what I tell you, old boy. Huh? No, you see, how would you approach this question? What would you do?
More the student, and the student
Yes, sir. Yesterday, perhaps you're not here. Yesterday we said, in this kind of school we are thinking about, a right relationship between the teacher and student should be established. And that can only take place when both the student and the teacher, the educator, feel that they are at home. This is their home. Because they're going to spend 8 months of the year or more in that ambiance, in that environment, in that togetherness. And therefore they have, from the very first day, they have established a kind of relationship which matures as it goes along. And so, since they feel at home being in which there is no kind of fear, no kind of compulsion, no kind of authority. The authority of the teacher, the authority of knowledge in the teacher, if all that's implied. How would a group of teachers see that this kind of discipline is naturally born in the student? That is the question we are considering. We have to discuss it is said that we have to discuss with the student the nature of discipline and so on and on and on. That's natural, isn't it? That's what you would do. The very first day, you would establish what kind of school this is, right? No? And not leave it to the student. What the school stands for. And to translate or to interpret or to convey to the student what the school stands for, the teacher himself has to understand very deeply what it stands for. Not only the principle, but every member of the staff. Which means, in explaining to the student what the school stands for, that very explanation brings about his own clarity. Right? Isn't it? If I have to explain to you what awareness is, as we did the other day, I have to be very clear what it means. I must be very familiar with the whole implication of that awareness. It can't be a guesswork. It can't be something casual. It must have a continuity, a sustained movement. It must have clarity, and so on, so on, so on. So, the educator himself has to feel the necessity of this freedom in which there is discipline. Not the discipline first and freedom afterwards. Huh? So as a teacher in that school, if I am one, perhaps which God forbid, I have to know what freedom implies, what discipline implies. Mustn't I? Before I can convey it to another. And if it is really what I want, too. It isn't what the school stands for. I agree what the school stands for. It is part of my life, what the school stands for. And therefore, I want to explain this to the student. I'm eager, I'm enthusiastic, I feel very strongly about this matter. So, if I feel very strongly and intense about it, then I would discuss with him what freedom implied. Go into it in great detail, that freedom is not revolt. Freedom isn't just what you like to do, because nobody can do what they like to do. Freedom is not to
Why not put here? On a little stand?
Mettez là, c'est ça va très bien, c'est ça.
Much better, yes.
No, that sloped much.
Please do it. Yes, of course. All right.
So as we were saying, I would explain to the student what freedom meant. That is not revolt, that is not to do what one likes, that is not an interference with a personal inclination or tendency. That's nothing whatsoever to do with authority and obedience. Nor has it anything to do with conformity through fear and threat. So I would explain to him very, very carefully, because I feel it, because they're part of my life. I feel if as a human being I am not free, I cannot help another to be free. Comment? So I have to go into this question, not only at the staff meetings, but also by myself inwardly understand the whole implication of a freedom, which I'm trying to translate or help the student to understand. I mean, that to explain that freedom, even to grown-up people, is quite difficult, because most people don't want to be free, especially when one is young. When one is a child, is 5 or 7 or 18, one wants to be gregarious, together, to copy, to imitate, to follow the group, and all the rest of it. So for a student to understand that is much more difficult. So but it's my job. Mon métier, it's my métier to tell him what it feels like, what he should be, not should be in the patterns. So I convey that to him. Not just one talk, but throughout the school days, throughout the months that he is with me. I'll talk about it in different ways at meal time. Oh, there are so many ways you can go into it. Then also I would discuss with him, argue, not lay down the law, exchange, argue, sharpen his mind to this whole question of what is discipline. Huh? What do you say, sir? I mean, am I talking to the winds, or shall we go along with this?
So anything you say to that child has to deal with liberty. And
Yeah.
anything you do.
Of course, sir, of course.
Sir, there are some children who are so confused that they constantly need to be told what to do.
Yes.
Otherwise they become more confused.
Yes, there are certain types of children who need to be told what to do, because otherwise they feel insecure. So I wouldn't create that situation. Understand, sir? If I was a teacher, I would see that he had security. Without, he had security, not only physically and all the rest of it, but I would see that he had this kind of security, but yet point out to him the dangers of not being free. You follow, sir? Look, I've never run a school. But I've been to two schools in India, north and south. We spend a month in each place discussing all these problems. And I feel if I was a teacher, and if freedom and discipline, I feel, inwardly are absolutely essential, discipline being order, not order according to any particular sergeant or the general or the priest, but inward order. And as I feel that is absolutely necessary for any human being, both freedom and order, I would discuss with the student on every possible occasion, point it out. When you're on a walk or eating in class, you follow, sir? I would not only give him complete security, because it is his home. He can criticize, he is free to say, look, sir, you're not telling the truth. You follow, sir? So establish a relationship with him so that he feels that under every circumstances he's completely at home. And how do we, a group of teachers, come together on this on these two fundamental issues, freedom and order. Society generally objects to freedom, because society says freedom means disorder. Like a society geared to war, and the citizen who is supposed to be free says, I'm against war, he's clapped into a prison. Well, this is happening all over the world. And society is frightened of freedom. And to a particular given society, order is conformity to the pattern. And in a school of this kind, how is it possible for a whole group of teachers to convey this not only in words but in feeling, this orderliness? What do you say, sir?
The difficulty is that I myself, the teacher, is still conditioned. I'm not free yet.
We went into that yesterday, sir. I myself as a teacher am conditioned. I myself, in myself, are disorderly. Not only the room, but in my mind, in my relationships, I am disorderly. And I'm frightened of being free. Because I've been brought up in a society that refuses freedom. So I am conditioned that way. And we said yesterday, I can't wait till I am unconditioned and then teach. I mean, that would be impossible. But to uncondition myself as I am teaching, which means I must be conscious of my conditioning, and in the very process of teaching the student who is also conditioned, we both of us together uncondition ourselves. Otherwise, there is no way out. Does all this sound terribly utopian? Huh? Ideological? I hope not. All utopias and all ideologies are really quite idiotic anyhow. So, here is the question. How do we together convey this feeling? Orderliness and discipline and freedom. That's what the school stands for. It's printed in their circular and all the rest of it. But how do we see that is maintained? Oh, come on, sirs. Because I don't see otherwise how you're going to produce a different human being. Not produce, how you're going to bring about a different human being.
What happens to him when he leaves the school, goes back to society?
What happens to the student who is so free and orderly when he goes back to society? Probably he'll create havoc. Probably he'll create mischief. I don't know what she will do. But the the circumstance will say, for God's sake, keep those ideas to yourself and conform. He'll get married, and the wife say, that's all right, but toe the line. I used to know several communists, very ardent, very young, full of beans, full of ideas. And they got married at a job. You know what the rest of the story is. So in the same way, how can you predict what such a human being will do in a given society? And why do you want to predict? That's his life. After all, you know, all of us want to interfere with others. That's one of our peculiarities. Tell others what they should do. Influence others, subtly or through gross propaganda. We all want to influence, interfere. Not only with our children, but also with grown-up people. And in a school of this kind, we are helping that student to be aware of all these interferences, influences, not only from the parents, but also from society, and see intelligently or become aware of these influences intelligently and go beyond them, not let them be destroyed by these influences. That's part of our school business, isn't it?
Si vous créez un cercle vicieux, à ce moment-là, cet enfant n'acceptera pas l'école, je pense.
Alors, under these circumstances, the questioner says, the child will not will not go to the school, to that kind of school. All right, it doesn't. If there is no children, we shut up shop. What?
So, doesn't this point of age comes here? Because a child is being put into the school at the age of 5 or 7. He's not, in an ordinary school, he's immunized against the violence in a sort of way by suffering violence and understanding it, perhaps getting through it. In this sort of school, he's conditioned not to be conditioned.
No. So when the student comes to the school, he's violent. And as you said, he's immunized to violence. He has been bullied and all the rest of it. And are we unconditioning him to be free of violence and to condition him to be peaceful? We are telling him, don't be conditioned by violence or by non-violence. Look at it, examine it, go into it. I mean, if like those people who are conditioned by Hinduism or Buddhism, jump into the other form of condition, become Catholics or Hebrews or whatever you will. But if we begin to understand as a group of teachers that every form of condition, good or bad, what you think is good as good conditioning or somebody else thinks bad conditioning, we say, don't be conditioned. Which is, question everything. Your own feelings, your own ideas, the influences that are being imposed on you, the interferences, the propaganda. Don't become a slave to anything. And perhaps individuals can do this, which means they have to be highly sensitive, right food and all the rest of it. And can this be done in a school? You understand my question? You know, the Jesuits say, give a child to us till 7 and forever he is conditioned. The same things the communists say. The same thing the capitalists, the socialists, everybody says this. Only they don't put it so brutally. But this is what is actually happening throughout the world. And here is a school and a staff which says, look, we want to bring about a different human being who is not conditioned, which means he has to be highly intelligent to be aware of his conditioning and the society which is always trying to condition him. And we ask ourselves, as a group of teachers, is this possible? Not theoretically, but actually in every day, in a school, whether 100 boys or more or less, to see that this goes on. I don't see why it is not possible.
Communication is possible. This should be possible too.
Communication is possible, and so this should be possible too. So, if there is a school of this kind, which we hope there will be, in some place, whether it's in Holland, England, or here, are there a group of us that can do this? Are there a group of us that are really dedicated to this, who feel this very strongly?
Do you think it's important that such teachers should not be concerned to demonstrate that this can be done?
Is this not, huh? You think it is important to demonstrate that this can be done?
No, I meant it's not important that such teachers should not be concerned to demonstrate this.
Of course. Naturally, they should be concerned, not to demonstrate to the public or a show off, but do it every day. So let's leave that for the moment. then is it possible also in a school of that kind to cultivate, no, to bring about intelligence which is not comparative and competitive? As we were saying yesterday, we compare A with B. And so A is destroyed, and in another form, B is also destroyed. Now, is it possible for A, who is not so bright as B, is it possible for A to cultivate that intelligence which doesn't belong to A or B? I wonder if I'm conveying this. Huh?
So, there is a principle at one school in England where they consider that if a boy is good at anything, gardening, anything, that is sufficient, that he can find something that he can excel in, that his personality is so wide that it doesn't matter if he's good or bad at scholastic things. But I don't understand, sir, why competition in technical skills necessarily should be violent.
Competition in technical skill, should it be necessarily violent? Now, let's begin, sir. What do we mean by comparison? What's wrong with being compared? Comparing A with B, and we grown-up people do this all the time. I'm comparing myself with another person who is much more clever, or I'm comparing myself with somebody who is not so clever as I am. We are doing this all the time. In magazines, all that goes on. Now, what is wrong with it? Huh? There is? Judging. What's wrong with judgment? That's what we're all doing.
Yes, but how can we know what's right and wrong? They are not perfect. How can we know what's right and wrong?
How can we know what is right without or wrong without judgment?
No, we can't know for every human being. For him might be something else.
How can we know what is right and wrong for someone else?
No, madam, that's not what we are discussing for the moment. We are asking what is wrong with comparison, or what is right with comparison.
No, I think that point did have some basis in that.
I'm not saying it has no basis.
No, but in that isn't it possible that for one child, comparison might inspire a certain incentive, where in another child it might
Destroy it. Yes. One child comparing himself with another might give him an incentive. But that same incentive might destroy another child. Again, this thing of incentives. Huh? Do you think incentives are right or wrong? Huh?
It implies stimulation.
I'm asking you, sir, incentives. do I come and sit here and talk because it is an incentive for me to become, to do or something or other? Do you do most things in life through incentives? Do please question it. Huh? Have you got incentives? I'm afraid you have, haven't you? And the greater the incentive, the greater the energy to achieve that. And this is what's going on in life all the time, isn't it, with each one of us? So let's come back to the point. Why do we compare? Why do I look at myself and say I am not as clever as that person, comparing myself? I am not as deep or as learned as that person. Why do I do this? Do I become deeper, more virtuous, more learned by comparing myself with somebody else?
Sir, in the question, which was technical, I was suggesting that competition, you could enjoy doing something, perhaps badly.
Sir,
I know you're doing it badly.
you know, wait. If I love something what I'm doing, is there does it need any comparison? I love what I'm doing. Wait, sir. Here I am. I love what I'm doing. You understand? It's exhausting business, all this, but I love it. Not because I derive some energy from talking to an audience or traveling. I really love what I am doing. Without reward, without punishment, without any of that. I said, this is what I have. You follow, sir? Well,
May I suggest, supposing at some stage you listen to a recording of a meeting, and you listen to it, and you thought, now, did I handle that question as well as I might have done?
I wouldn't do that. First of all, I wouldn't. I would listen, but I said, well, I'll see what happens next time. Because then you are calculating, you follow? Then there is no freedom. I listen to the record of what I said yesterday, and I might say to myself, by Joe, I should have been a little more careful. I should have put it this way, that way. Which means already I have I got it? Right.
Can I just go a little further here?
Yes, please.
Going backwards. In running a race, several boys, one will win, another one may not, and a photograph of that race may show that he's misusing his body.
Yes.
Now a teacher will help him to use
Surely,
his body.
surely.
In doing away with competition, you do away with every form of game.
No. Sir, I used to play golf, professional golf. And I couldn't compete. The moment I competed, I all went to pieces. There are people who are like that. The sense of competition is, I must be better than that chap.
That's where I wonder, can it be that you can enjoy, as you say, you can enjoy a thing for itself and have game if you have a game condition, you wish to win against a team, say, but you can enjoy it for itself.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yes. So, as well.
Yes. So, to come back, why do I compare myself with another? Please, this is really quite important question. Please give your thought a little bit to it. Why? There are two pictures hanging in a museum or in a room. Do I understand one picture by comparing it with another picture? One is by Picasso, another by, I don't know, somebody else. And I say, no, I've already, to me, Picasso is better, or he's a dreadful chap. And so I'm comparing these two. And do I understand the beauty of a picture, the beauty through comparison?
On the contrary.
Huh? On the contrary. All right. Just a minute. Then why do I compare myself with another?
Because it's easier than to look at oneself.
Is it easier to look at oneself by comparing myself with another?
We think it is.
Huh?
We think it is.
We think it is. But is it? Why can't I look at myself without comparing? I am dull. Wait. This is really quite a complex problem. Please go into it with me a little bit. I am dull. And you are very bright. I know this comparison. I must become like you, or try to become like you, or become more clever. So I say to myself, that's too silly. I won't do that. But how do I know I am dull without comparison? Right? I wonder if you're following what I'm talking about. I only know I am dull through comparison. Right? Because I see all of you are very clever. And so I say I'm dull. But if I have no comparative spirit at all, please follow this. How do I know I'm dull? I don't. I am what I am. Which doesn't mean I'm satisfied with what I am. So, the comparative spirit, which is I am dull or you're clever, to me that is totally unimportant. It has no meaning. So I discover myself actually as I am, what is. Is that possible? You're following?
So, as soon as that is possible, competition doesn't matter.
No.
So exams don't matter.
Yes. Is it, that's my question, sir. Is it possible? See what is implied in this. I know I am dull because you are clever. You have more money, more, all the rest of it. And I say I'm dull. And I try to reform that dullness, make it sharp. And it can never be as sharp as yours. Right? So, to me, that form of thinking is utterly fallacious. So I put that aside. But how do I know I am dull? Without comparison. I don't. Right? So, but yet, I am not what you are. But what you are is very useful to society. You have money, position, prestige, and all the rest of it. Inwardly, I want that. It is not that I want to be clever, but I want to have all those things which you have. Right? And I say to myself, he has all those things which I have not, because I am dull. And I have no comparative spirit at all. Then what am I to do? What is a whole staff of people, of teachers, who say, don't let's compare. How are you going to deal with a student without incentive, without mark, without comparison? You follow, sir? How are we going to help him to go beyond himself? I don't know if you're meeting my...
But sir, there is also another way than comparison to be aware of one's own dullness. When the response to a challenge is inadequate, it produces suffering and pain.
That is for the grown-up people. You understand? I mean, here we are dealing with teachers and students. How is it? Do think it out, sir. How are you going to do this in a school? As it is now, we are not educated to love what we are doing. That's understood. A pianist, if he has got any talent, and if he's good family and so on, he's shuffled off into, God knows, business, or it generally becomes whatever it is. And so on. And if you can't pass certain exams, you're shunted off. Now, how are we, as a group of teachers, going to work together with the student so that he loves what he is doing, and therefore he has no comparative spirit at all? How do you set about, sir? Come, let's talk about it. That's right. We are comparing two images. Understood all that. Now, if you are teachers, how are you going to do this in a school? Huh? We must give a broad exposure to his own work. A child, sir, that's very difficult. It's all right. Do you know, sir, what is happening in America and Russia and all the rest of it? One of the field marshals, reporting to the Politburo, says in his report, which I happened to read, that through hypnosis, they are training soldiers. You understand, sir? They hypnotize them and teach them under hypnosis to kill, to do certain movements, technological and so on. And In modern schools, where there are so many students, and the professors and teachers not being of the highest type, they get tapes on which the first-class professors have spoken, and transmit that tape to the students. And the teacher, the local teacher, merely interprets what has been said, so that the child is being gradually mesmerized. You follow? I don't know if you know all this, sir. Huh? You know some of all this. People. Yes, you are up, please. Go ahead, madam. Don't ask me.
The previous question you started, I think, is one of the most difficult and most essential questions. For instance, if you take a group of children, say they are drawing.
Ma'am, look, will you please make the question brief because I have to repeat.
Well, if you have a group of children, for instance, they are drawing something, they will state the fact. That one does it very well, and I found that fact in itself will have an effect on the child.
Of course.
So it may even discourage the child.
Now, look.
You can't get away ever from comparison.
The question is, when there are a group of children in a art class, whatever it is, one child is better. And the student watches that child and says, and becomes conscious that he's not doing as well as the other. Why?
Because he's comparing rather than simply acknowledging that the other boy.
No, watch it. Please go into it. There are a group of children. And we, the grown-up, the teachers say we won't compare, and all the rest of it. But the boy watching the other boy painting, drawing, says he's certainly better than I am. Huh? And he's already got that spirit of comparison and competitiveness, right?
Not competitive, but comparison,
Yes,
yes.
comparative, that's good enough. Comparative. He's already got the bug. The disease. Now, how are you going to prevent that?
If the teacher can see what the lesser one is doing, he's probably doing magnificently for himself, and that can be encouraged.
Yes, sir, but the boy looks at the other boy and says he's doing better than I am. That's the question.
Yes.
It's assuming that there must be a better and a worse.
The boy feels that. The boy,
Because he has an idea of what he's doing.
but the boy has it.
But he has it partly because the teacher has the idea.
So, you say the teacher has the idea that one is better than the other. But so we are saying the staff members have not this idea, but the boy has it. How are you going to deal with it? That's our problem. Huh? Point out to the boy what true talent is. What is true talent? But I probably, one of the boys, have no talent. But you have talent. And I see you have talent, I haven't got it. And I would like to have that talent. Because the teacher comes on and says, that's pretty good. And the pictures are sent to Poland and all the rest of it. Mine are not. And I feel inferior, depressed. You follow? I take the other road. So please do think of this. How are you going to prevent this?
You have to discuss the outcome of this type of thinking
Yes, it is said you have to discuss with the student what is involved, with hate, jealousy, and all the rest of it. You may discuss with him endlessly, but he still has this thing because it's so deeply ingrained. I don't know if you have watched yourself.
But there's nothing wrong with it.
There is nothing wrong, is there? Now wait a minute, wait.
Is the mere constating that he's doing better.
But if a child can learn to appreciate what the other boy is doing without comparing himself.
That's very nice. It is. If the boy, say, appreciates the better picture, then his problem is very simple. But I want to do as well as the other boy. No, please, just a minute. We are trying to find out how to prevent, we'll use that word for the moment, this taking place in a boy, this comparative spirit in a boy, when he looks at the picture which he considers himself as better.
For the result,
Come on, madam.
he is teach to work not for the result of his work.
He's taught to work not for the result of his work.
He is taught to work not for a result. No, madam, forget all this for the moment. You, not you, but somebody, have this comparative spirit. You see in a magazine a woman with so-called beautiful face. And you look at it and you, don't you say, Bacho? Huh? Doesn't mean anything to you? No? You're all very silent suddenly. You see a rich man in a big car go by. Doesn't it mean anything?
So that is being able to compare not all of critical mind.
No, please, just look at yourselves, please. You have the comparative spirit, haven't you? Huh? Let's be simple. You have. Why do you have it?
So that we won't have to look at the individual and examine the individual.
We are trying to do that, sir. Wait a minute, sir.
I say that's the reason we do this.
We compare in order not to look at the individual.
Yes, we compare in order not to look at the individual, all right. Go a little deeper than that. Why do you compare yourself with somebody else? Either you feel yourself inferior and therefore compare yourself with somebody whom you think is superior, or it is a habit that has grown. Better soap, better pictures, better piano, better cars, every year turning out better models. Right? This is a habit established by big business or little business. You have this in churches, the saint and the layman. So there is this spirit of comparison right through society, right? And it is in you and in me, if one has it. Why do you have it? Huh? Yes. We compare ourselves with another because we wish to be better, because we are lonely or whatever it is. No, go, please. I understand all this. Go a little deeper than that, please. You have answered all these superficial questions, right?
In comparison, there is envy, desire, and ambition involved.
Yes, sir. That's what is implied when you compare. Now, please go a little deeper into it.
Comparison is a way of thinking, put into thought.
Yes, that is, you put into a... So, look at yourself, please, as a teacher concerned with this problem, because this problem is becoming more and more intense.
So, why should the child require a bogus identity of somebody else's work?
I quite agree. I don't know why.
If it's in a secure surrounding which we established, it surely can see what is there without this tension.
So, we are trying to find out how to deal with the students who have already this comparative spirit, who come from homes where, etc., who have this very strongly. And if you remove this comparative spirit, they will go to pieces. They don't know what it means to work without comparing. So we are asking, how is it possible to eliminate this comparison altogether? So do watch this. This is not only a school problem, but it's a world problem. There are two so-called tremendously powerful nations, America and Russia, and now they're saying really only America is more powerful than anybody else, and so on and so on. And everybody else is competing, comparing, judging, evaluating. And we are doing this all the time in our life. Go into it much deeper and you'll come to it yourself. When I say, or when one says, I love you, is there any comparative spirit in it? Is it, please listen, is it that the boy or the girl has looked all the girls in the world and the boys, all the girls in the world, compared and says, well, I prefer that one. So, when there is something missing in us, then we compare. Right? So, what is missing? Please go into what is missing that makes me compare. I will not compare if I am. You follow? Not everyone can be good at something. No, that's not my problem. My problem is this. I compare. I've lived in comparison, which is a form of all this involved in it. And I say, why am I doing this thing? And the children are doing it. Why? Why are we all doing this? No, don't say security one word, sir. Huh? No. Wait, monsieur.
I don't have a picture of myself. I compare myself to others, and that is an identity. I'm this,
If you had a picture of yourself, an image about yourself, would that prevent you from comparing with other images? Oh, of course not. Your image is much better than mine. So, why do we compare? Go into it, you'll see. If you, Pardon, madame?
Parce qu'il y a une insatisfaction quelque part.
No, madame. No. What is missing? No. Look at yourselves. When you are completely happy, are you comparing? Huh? When you are deeply in sorrow, are you comparing? When you love somebody tremendously, feel very strongly, are you comparing? When you are really angry, are you comparing?
Aren't we mixing up two things? On the one side, the mental discovery of the world.
That's 12 o'clock. Thank God. Yes, I agree. Wait a minute. We are not discussing now these two things. The knowing of the world, comparing, judging, we are not discussing that. We are saying, why do we human beings compare? Psychology, obviously. Why?
Because then there's something missing.
Which means what?
What's missing is the acceptance of what is. We have always assured.
Yes, sir. Go further. The acceptance of what is, which is, I have no love, I have no strong passion or this or that. Therefore, I'm comparing. Now, how am I, as a teacher, going to cultivate this thing in a child? Psychologically, so that his cup is always full. So don't shrug your shoulders and brush it off. This is an immense problem in the world. No, madam, we are not talking of that at all. Sorry. We are saying, why do you compare? I think it's 12 o'clock. Yes, sir.
So just to say that in the love of doing something, actually doing it moment to moment, there is no time.
That's right, sir, that's right. Therefore, you see, that involves a great deal. Our action is always incomplete. We'll go into this tomorrow, so it's at 12 o'clock. Sorry.